This is the PowerShell Podcast, PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit Edition. Think of it as PowerShell After Dark, the bar sessions. A behind-the-scenes look at the PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit After Dark. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
We are live at PowerShell Summit 2024 in Bellevue, Washington, with none other than James Petty. To get this episode started off right, you know we're going to have a lot of interviews this week, so I wanted to set the stage with none other than James Petty. James Petty, welcome to the show.
Andrew, thanks for having me.
So it's been a pretty eventful day for many of us here as we're sort of just getting in, and tonight we had our opening reception where we sort of all got checked in and got together. How was that? What's it like for you to be kind of planning this event for a while, and now it's sort of is all coming together and you're actually seeing the faces that you've been working to prepare for?
Yeah, we've been planning for this event for well over a year now at this point. So finally to see people show up, the people that we've been talking to over the last year and have them show up is just, it's an amazing feeling. And the festivities tonight, we were here at the courtyard in the back ballroom, and just the conversations, the camaraderie that we have is just, it's unmatched. It's unparalleled any event I've ever been to.
It is. Yes, and yes. I've been talking to a lot of first timers, a lot of people who their first experience with the community hands-on was at our little reception tonight. And yeah, that's definitely the first impression people get, is that it is a very special place to be. And just, there's something about the vibe. And there's so many people I talk to where it's like, yeah, at work, I know all the PowerShell. I'm the PowerShell person where we work. But here, you can start a conversation, and there's people who maybe have more experience with certain things, which you don't always find with PowerShell specific knowledge if you are that person at work. But here, it's just everywhere.
Yeah, and the conversations that happen here are PowerShell, PowerShell, PowerShell. From the minute we wake up until the minute we go to bed, that is literally all we are talking about. Even post-conference, that's all we're going to be talking about when we're hanging out in the offsite. We're hanging out here in the bar until 1 o'clock in the morning. All we're doing is talking about PowerShell. It's fantastic.
Yep. And an exciting thing that I saw happen was there was a kind of a meetup before the official reception for all of the Onramp attendees, because I think that is a cool thing that PowerShell Summit offers. It's sort of a program geared towards general IT knowledge and setting you up for success in your career. Can you speak to what the Onramp program is and sort of how that's changed over the years?
Yeah, the Onramp program is it's kind of a sidetrack. It's a dedicated ticket type here at the summit, and it's dedicated to those, like you said, that are new to their IT career. So we're not really kind of looking for age ranges. We're looking for where you're at in your career. And the students that we have here in the Onramp program this year, I got a chance to meet most of them at the Onramp reception this afternoon, and they're excited to be here, and most of them are brand new to PowerShell. Some of them have never even opened up the PowerShell console, much less written their first script. So they're going to go through an all-day PowerShell workshop with Jeff Hicks and Mike Robbins. It's just the combined brain power of those two alone is just it's unparalleled. So they're going to get that brain dump on Monday, and then they're going to sit with us for the keynote with Abby on Tuesday. They're going to listen to the PowerShell team talking about the state of the shell, and then they're going to go back and they're going to have hands-on labs, introductory courses, Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday, and Thursday. Topics such as introduction to Git, introduction to .NET programming, Ansible, Terraform, just all of these things that you need to know to be successful in your career, be a successful DevOps engineer, and just the amount of knowledge they're going to get is just fantastic.
Yeah. And I think there is such a breadth of technologies you sort of need to be aware of and fluent with in IT. And even to just be able to speak with other people and understand what's going on in your environments as is. So that's really cool. And the thing that I really enjoy about the Onramp program is that that's where the scholarships go towards, because there's Onramp scholarships, right?
There are. So we handed out 6 full ride scholarships. When we say full ride, what we mean is, so the DevOps Collective, we took care of their ticket price. We bought their plane tickets. We're taking care of 5 nights in the hotel for them. We're helping out with meals and stuff. So all in all, it kind of comes to about $6,000 value for that student. But this is something like, this is how we give back to the next generation of IT professionals. We have to start building them up from the ground up. So we're trying to build that foundation, and we had a fantastic application process this year. We were only able to give away 6 scholarships, but we had almost 20 applicants. It was really hard to decide who was qualified to get these scholarship recipients, and so I've met most of them already, and they are just they're ready and excited. Most of them, they never could have come to a conference of any size, whether it be a B-Sides event or whether it be the PowerShell Summit. They would never get the funding from their company to come here. So some are here on their own dime. They're taking PTO, they're taking time away from their family. Some of them were able to get educational development time off from their work. But it's a fantastic opportunity that we've been able to produce ever since we've had the Onramp program.
Yeah, and it's really cool. It's to see the community sort of get behind through different ventures like books and things that people sell online, and they allow the proceeds to go towards the scholarship program. And also I know that one of the things I'm most proud of for having PDQ be a sponsor is just being able to sort of play some role in giving that opportunity to others, because my history, 2018, I was fortunate enough to receive a scholarship to attend Summit, and it completely changed my life in so many ways. It's why we're talking now to everyone listening. It really expands your world and what you think is possible, because for the Onramp program, and I'm one of the buddies, every single Onramp attendee has a buddy. That's someone who's been in the community for a while, that's going to be able to sort of help them get those conversations started, maybe direct them in the right direction if they have questions, or maybe want to learn more about a particular topic. And such a good experience, because they don't only leave with more technical knowledge, they leave with relationships, and they're not facing this whole daunting task of learning IT and improving your career all by themselves. They get to be part of a community, and that extends just beyond this 1 week here.
Right. Yeah. So you said the buddy program is something that we started a couple years ago. So all of our Onramp attendees get paired with a veteran summiteer, someone who's been to more than one summit, kind of help, because we know that those that come to a conference for the first time, it's really easy to get lost in the crowd and just to kind of go sit in your little, go sit and you kind of be antisocial. So your buddy is designed to help bring you into these conversations, introduce you to these people. So because like you said, it is a very welcoming community, but if you don't come from that kind of a background, or even if you're an introvert, like it's hard for you to interject yourself in these conversations. But when you have a veteran with you, it's a lot easier for them to just kind of help you push you into those conversations.
Exactly. That's what it's all about, reducing barriers and making it easier for more people to get involved and have successful careers.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. Like I said, we're building the next generation of IT professionals, because the goal is for you not to be stuck in your same job for the next 30 years. It is time for you to move on, and someone needs to take your place, and that's who these people are.
Yeah, and you deserve that. You deserve that out there, especially if you're listening to this. It's definitely worth it if you can make it out here to come to the conference. But so that's the Onramp track. And I want to talk about tomorrow. On Monday, at the time we're recording this, that's going to be Monday, we are having our first day of the conference. And I'm actually really excited. There's a sort of a new approach, and the first day is going to be workshops, deep dives. If you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we haven't done workshops since 2017, back when PowerShell Summit was a 3-day event with a 1-day add-on for pre-cons. But what we're doing is, we're doing 3-hour deep dive sessions on, it is actually ended up being more introductory content, but that was one that was submitted, and two, that's what our community told us they needed. So we're going to get a 3-hour deep dive into introduction to Git, introduction to Pester. I think there's quite a few other Azure ones in there as well. So these are just great deep dive content, hands-on keyboard, follow me along labs with some of the greatest community members, and just the brain dump that is going to be flowing out tomorrow is just unprecedented. But not to mention the fact that all of these sessions are going to be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel absolutely free for everyone in the world to see.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. I know James Brundage was telling me he's doing a session on making modules, and goodness gracious, to learn from him for several hours, the little details you'll pick up. Yeah, maybe you've written a module before, but it's a very, very, very high likelihood that you're going to gain a ton of insights. And even if you already know a bunch, you get to see the perspective of someone else kind of going through it. And that is so valuable, especially the long form nature of it. I am so excited. Now, let me just keep preaching here, okay? Also, because it's on Monday, your brain is fresh. And these are deep dive topics that you can actually spend time to digest and take back with you to work. These are the type of things where you can come back and show off this knowledge. You can apply it and have some really key takeaways. And then you have yourself set up for the rest of the week to keep learning more and finding more areas of interest or things to follow up on. And I highly recommend, even if you're attending, watch the videos on YouTube. And for some of these things, if they are more challenging or newer to you, watch them a couple times. Really absorb that information, work through it, ask questions, have a good time.
Yeah, like I said, they are absolutely free. So go online, PowerShell or youtube.com/PowerShell.org. You can also go to PowerShell.org, click on our videos tab, and they'll be there probably by the end of May, I think is when. So our friends over at ConFreaks, fantastic people, Sydney and the gang are going to do a great job as usual. So they're going to get those turned around just as fast as they can, usually about 45 days.
Awesome. Now, it's great that the videos are available on YouTube because I know not everyone can make the trek to Bellevue, but there have been some people who have made quite the trek. Several. Where are some of the wild places, not wild, but faraway places you've heard people coming here from this year?
So some of the people I've met so far, I know. So we have Josh King, came all the way from New Zealand, which I think is probably our furthest.
Probably.
I know we have Christian, who is over here from Germany. Fred is also from Germany. Yeah. Alexander. We have about a dozen or so people here from the UK. Of course, I think we have almost every state in the United States represented as well.
Alaska, I'm on the lookout.
Yeah, Alaska, Hawaii, I'm looking for you. But in the past, now, this is not information that we collected. We may do that next year. But in the past, we have had people from India, South Africa. Even last year, we had 2 people from South Africa come join us. So it's just always great to see the people coming from around the world. Like, that's kind of tells you about this conference. Is like they are literally traveling around the world to come here to Bellevue to listen to the content that we have. And we wouldn't be where we are today without our attendees, and we're so grateful that they're able to come to us.
We got the best community. It's so much fun. This PowerShell community.
The PowerShell community is unlike any other community out there.
Forever indebted, for sure. Well, that wraps up our sort of day one recap. We will have to touch base later in the week, see how things are going. Maybe get some more information about some of the other talks we have later in the week. But thank you, James, so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having us, and maybe we'll chat later.
All right, take care.
Cheers.
Cheers. Another episode of the PowerShell Bar Sessions with none other than James Ruskin. How are you doing tonight, man?
Oh, I'm doing fantastically.
You have the benefit of presenting in 2 days from now. Today's Tuesday. You're presenting on Thursday. You haven't presented yet. How you feeling with things?
Honestly, I'm always nervous. Literally always. There's not a moment that I don't go by without being nervous. But I'm excited for it. I'm genuinely looking forward to it. It's probably my most technical talk that I've done so far. So yeah, I'm excited.
What's the topic title?
So the specific topic title is Enhancing Your Attributes, which is definitely not a callback to various D&D themed talks from the past. No, it totally is a little bit, but it's minor.
Who's the D&D talk? Is it Mikey Lombardi?
That was in fact Mikey.
What's
Lombardi.
the title?
Ooh, his was D&D and
I put you on the spot.
You did.
Late
and
at
I
night.
failed. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, that is a fantastic talk, though. Whatever it's called.
It's been a while. Sorry.
Whatever it's called, it's a fantastic talk, Mikey Lombardi. I'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Wonderful.
So
Thank
people
you.
can know. But I think he was like comparing RPGs to development or something like that, or how
docs and whatnot. It's,
yeah.
Fun time.
And if I know Mikey, there was some soft skills sparkled in there somewhere.
I could believe it. But yes, it is. If I'm honest, it's a little late in the evening, and my memory banks are not entirely firing on all
That's
cylinders.
fair enough. And you're joining PowerShell Summit. I've talked to a lot of people joining us from in a lot of different places, but you've come across the pond, as they say. Where are you from?
It's true. I'm from Cambridge in the UK. A lovely city.
Lovely.
I would say lovely. Most Americans would say it's very close to London, and I guess I'd agree.
Nice. That's fun. You and I have been friends for a while. I didn't even realize I haven't had you on the podcast yet, so I'm very excited we get a chance to touch base. Some of my favorite memories from last year were actually getting to chat with you after hours, and we've been friends for a while now. But I love connecting with friends of old and making friends of new. And a conference like this is just a fantastic opportunity to make connections and improve your network.
Absolutely. I would completely echo the sentiment. It's there's been some wonderful memories made.
So what are some of the key takeaways from your talk that you're really hoping to impart on people?
Gosh, the way I'm trying to sell it, as it were, is definitely that there's a wide variety of wonderful attributes out there that you can apply to things in parameters. In general, and actually writing your own more specific things to either influence or enforce things on those parameters is surprisingly easy. I think I use the phrase surprisingly easy because, I think people might be scared of the idea because, either you have to work with classes or you have to work with C#, but it's very doable, and I think it's worth it.
So let's break this down. So we have parameters. What are those and why? So we're writing commands or functions or scripts that have parameters?
Sure. So you've got scripts and functions, and you can have parameters, which are basically ways to inject arguments into those scripts or functions.
So kind of change the way it works a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You give it something to work on, as it were. And then, you can decorate those parameters with various things. You can enforce a type, or you can have something that basically says, hey, actually, when you give me that argument, it should be within these constraints. It should be, within a range, or it should match a pattern, or, it should be validated by a script. But you can do more complex things like say, hey, actually, I want to do some substantial lookups, and it should fall within a range that is previously agreed. Or even better, you can do conversions. So you can say, hey, you've given me a string, or you've given me, a more complex object. I'd like you to actually pass in something much more simple or more complex, and we can transform that, the argument that you give on the command line, which obviously, if you don't give it an object, it doesn't have to be something terribly complex, but you could do a lookup or something like that in order to give it an interesting object, so to speak. And use that instead. And it's really awesome that it's so easy to implement. Well, that's what I hope to show.
Yeah, it's something that I highlight where it's one of the cool features of PowerShell where with a little bit of code on your end, you can take advantage of what would be a lot of code for you to implement if you were to.
Sorry?
So basically you can take advantage of some of the features in PowerShell to not have to write as much code, right? You write a little bit on your parameter. You mentioned types, for example, right? Like you can constrain it to a particular type. Say you're dealing with numbers.
Yep.
We'll say integers.
Yep.
Right? If you're dealing with text, maybe a string. And by just using that, by setting a type, what would take a lot of effort for you to implement is suddenly made easy. Just by understanding that this thing exists and then taking advantage of it, which sounds like sort of what your talk is highlighting.
Sure. I'm gonna run down a lot of the basically the well-known attributes on the kind of the way into showing how to write some of the more complex stuff. I'm excited to kind of show that off and hopefully just, if nothing else, kind of just show people what's available. Because frankly, when I was looking through some of this stuff, I was like, oh, darn, they've added some new stuff since I actually looked at this last. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think that it's something that a lot of people haven't dove in deep into enough. Because writing commands enough is a bit of a challenge, and there's a limited number of people who've even written a function.
Yep.
And I think that it'll be a pretty awesome session to highlight some stuff that people maybe aren't taking full advantage of. Me, I know about these things, and I have taken advantage of them in the past. I can still benefit from getting it clarified again, because there's just so many different awesome features in PowerShell, and it always helps to get a nice little refresher.
For sure. And sorry, just to roll into it
Please
even
do.
more deeply.
Please do.
I'm sorry. I find it's also amazing for a lot of these things. It's fantastic for a point of view of somebody who's new to PowerShell and is leaning on the discoverability of either get help or being able to look at a function script, etc., and see, hey, actually, this, instead of just having for example, comment help where you define these things, having either well-defined script parameters or there's a bunch of attributes that allow you to define more complex help that will be output when you use get help or something along those lines. And it's awesome that's something that's so, it increases discoverability. Stuff like argument completers can increase the ability for people to be able to see, hey, actually, these are examples of things that can be used. It's just a whole wonderful field.
Argument completer, what is that?
Oh, so argument completers are basically, I don't know if you've ever tried, if you're, I suspect you have tried, but if anybody else hasn't tried, when you're filling out a function and you've got some parameters, and you hit tab or control space maybe, then you'll be presented with options that are hopefully valid. But at the most default level, you'll get probably a listing of files in the current directory that you're in, the present working directory. So that's a real basic version. But you can write more complex things, more, scripts, etc., and you can have those. Basically, to me, it just highlights to the user what's available and what is expected of them, and you can do really interesting things with that. I'm hoping to go into that further.
Love it. And you know what? Your talk's going to be on YouTube for those who are not present.
It'll be there within a few months, I suspect. Several months, possibly.
Possibly. They got to do some editing. It does take some time.
It does.
I will ask you a question here that I've been asking people. What is one tip? Maybe it's something you've realized this week. Maybe it's something you're passionate about and dealing with. What is one tip you would give to our listeners out there listening? Hard question. I did not prep you for this.
I wasn't already. I guess. Sorry, I'm struggling for what level of stuff we're talking about here, but I definitely say, don't be afraid to ask people for help. That honestly, yeah.
Now, maybe we need to tap into this more in a future episode, but I'm curious, how did you originally get involved in the PowerShell community?
In the PowerShell community
Because I've seen you around for a while.
I've been about, I guess.
You're a polished speaker, some would say at this point.
I'm not sure I'd say that.
I would.
You're too kind. I guess in the PowerShell community specifically, I could probably trace it back all the way to a high five from Brett Miller.
Really? I love that guy. Brett Miller's amazing.
Fantastic guy. Honestly, sorry. Okay. There's probably a couple of levels here. I used to work with a guy, Joel Bennett, who's a lovely guy, obviously very...
You worked with Joel Bennett? What?
Heck yeah.
I love that guy.
Absolutely.
Where?
A company called Question Mark, which always sounds very sarcastic when I say it. Where did you work? Question Mark. All right.
What industry is that?
So they dealt with examinations, learning, and the like.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of twofold.
J. Cole, for those who haven't.
Indeed.
Yes.
A wonderful, wonderful guy. But yeah, so worked with him, and obviously he is a big part of a lot of communities around PowerShell, but never met him until vaguely recently in comparison. And then in terms of PowerShell communities, I jokingly replied to a tweet from Brett Miller where he offered a high five in exchange for a tweet. And I went and got that high five in London and had a great day, got introduced to a bunch of lovely folk, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
You're making a legacy for yourself. It's been a pleasure to get to chat with you in person. Great to connect with you this week. I'm looking forward to your session. And It's on Thursday, correct?
It is Thursday. Last thing. So something to look forward to, let's say.
The highlight of the week, potentially, for some.
Nervous laughter.
I'll be there to heckle you and offer support at the end. I promise you I'll clap.
I look forward to that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you to James for joining me. Cheers, man.
Have a great day.
Cheers. We are post me eating a delicious dinner. I went out with some coworkers to some place called Dozo and had some great food, but I'm back now and I'm here with a fresh interview with none other than much anticipated, and maybe this is a teaser for a full episode in the future, but Ben Reeder. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me.
Do you have some good dinner tonight?
I did. Yeah, I'm gonna get myself killed. I actually broke vegan for some salmon tonight.
Really?
Yeah, it was really, really good. It was really good.
I'm glad it was good. It was worth it.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, so we've had a long day today, and you haven't done any of your talks yet, right?
That's correct. So I didn't submit any sessions this year, but as a sponsor, we have the comfy life of just being given a spot. So tomorrow we are doing kind of a weird one. So I work for Patch My PC. Just a quick introduction. I work for Patch My PC as a software engineer, and we've just recently partnered with PS App Deploy Toolkit. So we're here. One of the cool reasons about having PS80 in our little bag of fun things that we have is that I get to go to any PowerShell conference that I want to. So I'm here to do an introduction about Dan Cunningham, and we're just going to talk about PS App Deploy Toolkit tomorrow, and a little bit of the pain about application packaging and like why no one should ever have to do it ever.
Right.
So nice, fun, and breezy, very depressing conversation. It'll be great.
Well, at least there's some solutions, maybe some
there is exactly
greener grass in the future. So awesome. Look forward to catching that one. So people have probably seen your work. Obviously technical work for sure, but also you are the man responsible for the PowerShell shirts.
Yeah, I am. So yeah, I guess, aside from work, I do a lot of community outreach stuff with PowerShell scripts. I do the Intune training channels, but yeah, I think you're right that most people know me from my t-shirts. Yeah. I guess a little backstory behind that one is I was working for a consultancy firm back in 2017, and I got to go to my first conference, which was PSConf Asia in Singapore.
Nice.
And I was told to bring business cards, and I did not want to bring business cards. So I made a t-shirt that had a QR code on the back, but I don't trust QR codes. So I just wrote the script that was an Azure function written in PowerShell on the front of the shirt so that you could review what you were about to scan. And it was a hit. There's probably a more drunken story. I absolutely, prior to that, had a custom PowerShell shirt that I made that I drunkenly gave off my literal back to Matthias. And we're now very close friends. And basically from there, I was just like, wow, this is better than business cards. Everyone knows me. This is really fun. So I'm also like in the music scene in Australia, and I have a lot of friends in the music scene and the tattoo scene. So I have a lot of creative friends. So I reach out to them, and instead of doing a music shirt, I'm just like, hey, I'm kind of like in this weird nerd culture. Could you do a shirt for me, but like make it metal? So every year I get a different designer, and we design a shirt. I make a very small amount. I make, at the moment, I'm doing 50 shirts for, this is the bad part. It's for PSConf EU only. It's an exclusive for this conference. I do 50 shirts. I give them out. And then a couple of months after, I put them up for sale to try and make some money to pay for the next design next year. So it's a thankless job. It costs me a lot of money. I really enjoy making t-shirts. I really care about good design and good t-shirt quality. And people really love it.
I mean, I have one at home,
that's
I
amazing.
enjoy it. I love rocking it out.
And,
and those who know whenever they see it, especially if you wear it to anything PowerShell related. But yeah, they're very well designed. I really do enjoy them.
Thank you.
Kind of a cool little creative project, PowerShell community oriented as well.
I've got the product group wearing them now, which is huge.
That's awesome.
I really like that. One of my favorite things about going to PSConf EU and PS Summit is that I get to see all the different years of the shirts and designs on shirts that I didn't realize existed.
Right.
Which is always wild. Yeah, it's cool.
Exciting. And I can tell that you're into music because you have held the mic a very proper distance from your face this whole time.
Of course.
Better than me. So kudos to you on that one. But yeah, I think music is a pretty interesting thing. It's always fun to hear about the creative things people do outside of PowerShell.
Yeah, sure.
Because PowerShell's awesome, but also we sort of do need to try and find somewhat of a balance with things. So, did you mention? I can't tell if we're recording or not. Did you mention you're from Australia?
Yeah, no, I am from Australia, the prison island that everyone loves to visit. So to that, I'm in a band I try to I try to keep my my business nerd side and my music side completely separate, but it's the blurring is getting difficult. So I'm in a band that I joke that no one will listen to called World Sick. We play a genre of music that we invented called sad gaze, which is like shoegaze, but for sad, miserable people.
Okay.
It's very loud, very fun, lots of guitar. And we've just finished recording an album that we're hoping to release by the end of the year. We're going to go on a big tour. It's a whole thing.
That'll be so exciting, man.
It will. It's just a lot of work. If you think having a deadline for a deployment is stressful, go into a recording studio and like play a song pitch perfect.
Yeah. When you're paying for time,
it's horrifying. Yeah.
Well, do you make any swag for your band or
yeah, we do, and I think that's kind of where the shirts for this came from. Like one of my more fun parts of being in a band is coming out with the designs and just like collaborating with graphic designers because I can't draw to save my life.
Right.
But I love the process of like finding places to screen print. I really care about the quality of the shirt because there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of swag out there in the tech world that is on very low quality stuff. So it has to be good quality. So I just appreciate the whole process of getting everything, and yeah, it's fun.
That's fun. It feels like a small world moment almost. Or
yeah, for sure.
All these things kind of tying together. It's very fun. And with that, I think that, PowerShell Summit's fantastic, but you have been attending a bunch of conferences. I think PSConf EU, I think we have MMS MOA coming up.
Yeah, that's coming up in May this year. It's always held at the Mall of America. They actually also do like a mid or end of year conference. Generally, it's in Miami. I have a strong feeling that it's on a boat this year. But yeah, so MMS, for anyone that doesn't know, is a conference. It stands for Midwest Management Summit. It's generally focused around like configuration manager and Intune and just generally like managing devices. So, there's a nice dovetail there between PowerShell and managing computers because, like we could have GUIs and we could click on things, but if we could automate our processes, then we can really make our lives better. So I go to this conference because I'm classically trained in managing computers. I'm like an MVP in the enterprise mobility space. I think it's changed to security now, which is interesting. So I go to this conference and I try to convince a bunch of people that don't want to do it that automation is going to make their life better.
It's interesting to see, we are sort of involved in the PowerShell world and see automation a lot, but it is, when you look at the bigger picture of the industry and the world at large, there are many people who are very hesitant to learn something like PowerShell or to implement automation, sort of go down that journey. It's sort of an interesting problem space where I feel like the whole world would benefit pretty substantially if we can get more and more people, kind of reduce those barriers, help get more people involved in doing things the right way. A big point I like to harp on is, it'd be really great if we could have more people implement PowerShell securely and like configure the policies properly and be aware that they exist and they're actually worth doing. But yeah, how do you think we can improve the way that we're helping those beginners?
So, first of all, very good and very deep question. I think to what you were saying initially, I think that PowerShell is the glue that helps you manage anything without caring what it is. Right. A lot of the conferences that I go to are, Microsoft focused. Obviously, PowerShell is a Microsoft product, but because it is now, especially from PowerShell 7, it is platform agnostic. There are very little automation frameworks that are as platform agnostic and object oriented as PowerShell. So I really think that sort of showing how simple it can be is one of the big sort of stages and platforms that I have when I talk. One of the other big things that I'm really trying to push now that sort of the adoption of PowerShell is, I think it is always going to be room for it to be more adopted, but I just walk in with the concept of assumption that you already know it. So what I'm now trying to do is show people other technologies that can coexist with PowerShell that can make managing devices agnostically across anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Use SSH, use PowerShell, use all these things so that you can look after a device regardless of what it is. You don't need to know the name, really, kind of. You don't need to know what the operating system is. You just need to know what you want to intend to do. Like, what is the intent? Make it declarative, and then you get the object out and you can do things with it. I just, that's what I'm really passionate about, is just like, learn one thing, learn it really well, and you're going to have a career for life.
Facts. Yeah, I'd love to see more people increasing their adoption of those practices. But there's also another conference you mentioned that I've never heard of before. I think it was Workplace Ninja?
Yeah, Workplace Ninjas is a huge European conference that encompasses not only like a really big, like multi-day event it's generally held in Switzerland. I say this, I've never actually been, but I keep getting bullied into going, so I think I'm going to go this year. But it not only is a multi-day conference, but it's also fractured out into a bunch of user groups and single-day conferences all around the world. So it's kind of just a brand specifically just around the idea of like, and again, it's about device management. But this idea that, we've all got this knowledge and we're not sharing it. So this conference really just like wants us to collaborate and just like meet and just like learn from each other, because if we don't learn from each other, then we're all just going to be doing the same work. And that is one of the most frustrating things, is to like spend a week trying to solve a problem when you realize that, this guy in France figured it out 2 years ago. And if you just went to this conference to hang out with him, then you would have known the solution. So,
I see that all the time. There are so many amazing projects and stuff out there, and so many people end up solving the same problem that's already been solved in a better way that's public, but they just need to hear about it. Yeah. And being part of communities is so critical. There's so many benefits, but one of them is definitely hearing about new things, especially if you're, a lot of times people who listen to this podcast will be maybe the primary PowerShell person at work. When you can be involved in other communities and hear about things, you can cut down the work that you have to do majorly and take quick wins. And that's the beauty about PowerShell. I think Snover talks about like throwing hand grenades, right? Because you can do so much with so little.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is knowing about where to look, because there's a lot of cool stuff in the box, but a lot of the cool stuff in PowerShell is kind of extended through modules, and knowing about which ones exist and that you can use is a huge part of things. I was talking to somebody earlier today about Import Excel and how they heard about it and, it changed their whole thing. And so many people, I hear that about different modules like Import Excel, where you learn about it and all of a sudden you can do stuff in a way fancier way with very little extra effort, just one command oftentimes. But awesome. I do have a question that we did not prepare for.
Sure.
If you had one piece of advice you'd give somebody, maybe someone who's hearing this and thinking about attending a conference, they haven't really done it, they're kind of on edge, what's some advice you have for someone out there?
Really good question. So I've been going to conferences religiously since about 2016. And, it was a really daunting thing initially, because like, I didn't know anyone. It's horrifying. What do you do? Like when you go to a place and I guess the most important thing that I would say is that the sessions are really important because that's where you learn, but they're not the reason that you go to these conferences. You go to the conferences to meet people, you make friends with people, you learn more in the hallways of a conference than you'll ever learn in a session. Now, I'm not knocking speakers. Like what we do is exhausting work, and I can't believe we have to do it out of hours. Like, it's crazy.
It's wild.
But it's literally just the draw card to get you in a room with a bunch of like-minded people. Really what I would say is, if you've never been to a conference like a PowerShell DevOps Summit or PSConf EU or just any of these sort of automation-focused management places, go with an open mind. I know that we work in an industry that like attracts introverts and quiet people. I am one of those. Go and just like find someone, latch onto them, make friends. You will make friends for life at these conferences. It's like God's honest truth. It's
so much the truth. And we can go through our careers and keep making money, and it can be fine. You can do it by yourself, whatever. But you could also do it and have friends that you also grow with and are invested in. And it's great to have friends outside of IT, but there's something to be said about having a community of people that you're growing with. it's a lot easier when you don't have all the burden on your shoulders. You can kind of feel connected to something bigger than yourself, which is really cool about communities. And I think the PowerShell community is one of my favorites I've ever seen. So we're lucky to have people like you in the community doing awesome stuff. But Ben, thank you so much for joining me. I think we have more to talk about. Maybe we'll tap in the future.
Of course, buddy. Whenever you want to talk, I'm there.
Thank you, man. Well, great talking to you. And let's go get a drink.
Let's do it.
Cheers. We are here with another bar session with none other than long anticipated. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, Frank. Frank Lesniack. Did I say that correctly?
You got it, man.
First time saying it, first time hearing it.
Yep. Rhymes with Cadillac. That's how you know it's right.
Cadillac, Lesniak.
Yep.
Dang, dude, you're a fine individual, man. Refined, like a amazing brand. Now, I'll say, welcome to the PowerShell Summit. It's exciting to see you. I've seen you online for a very long time. Happy to see you in person. I know we're going to be attending a similar conference in the future in a couple of weeks. MMS MOA?
2.5 weeks or something. Yeah. Yep.
It's great to get to connect beforehand, and maybe we'll tap in a bar session at MMS MOA. Who knows? Who knows what's going to be in store for us?
Yep.
How's your day been? It's Tuesday.
Really good. Yeah. Today was great. I presented with my colleague Danny Stutz today.
Shout out Danny Stutz.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Big shout out Danny Stutz. Yeah,
we're gonna get him on later in the week.
Yeah, he's a great dude. No, we presented today. I think the session went really well. I mean, honestly, just like, whenever you're presenting, it's nice to be done. I have no regrets, but it's nice to be done because it's a load off your shoulders, and that's where I'm at. So feeling pretty good. But other than that, the sessions today were great. So really looking forward to tomorrow too.
I'm feeling that same relief that you are, because I finished my session today. I think I had the last session of the day, 4:00 or 4:15, I believe.
Yeah,
I
was there.
Oh, you were there?
I was in the audience, man. Second row. Come on.
I remember that. I appreciate you.
I'll admit I was uploading my code and my presentation, but I was listening as well.
Good, man. Yeah, it was a good time. I'm glad to be done. I have another talk on Thursday morning, which I'm actually getting really excited about. I'm talking to Onramp about welcome to the PowerShell community. And I'm really excited for the opportunity to connect with people sort of earlier in their journeys and sort of hopefully connect with them and encourage them to really embrace where they are and the journey that we've all sort of experienced, those of us who are listening to the podcast or a guest like yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a fun community to be in. I love getting to be in person with people and connect and sort of, I've been following you online for a very long time, and now to get to meet you, I know I messaged you on the MMS Discord.
Yeah, I was flattered you did, man. Honestly, that was cool. That was a great shout out.
Dude, I love it. I sent you a message, and you left me on red for about a day. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm a slacker on Discord, and I try and minimize interruptions, but I've been trying to. I pay attention more when it's close to a conference.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Yeah.
No, it's all good. It's
great to connect the dots and sort of meet you in person. I believe last year I met someone with the name Frank, and I messaged you on Twitter, and I said, "Hey, it was great meeting with you at Summit." And you said, "Yeah, I'm not at Summit."
Yeah, that's true. I was not here last year, unfortunately.
Is this your first year ever?
In person, it's my first year. Yeah, I did present in whatever that was, 2021. I think virtually.
That was right,
yeah, I did DevOps, source control for a spreadsheet. That was a good.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a fun talk.
I actually remember that talk.
Yeah, it was. I kind of felt like I was trolling the audience for the first 20 minutes. I was talking about native plants and other reasons I had a spreadsheet that I needed a source control for. Yes. And and then the rest of it was focused on how you actually would do source control on a spreadsheet. That was a good time.
And what was your talk on this year, you and Danny?
So the gist of the talk this year was about really doing data science stuff in PowerShell, which I felt like was uncharted territory. If you're doing data science stuff, you're typically using Python or maybe MATLAB. And I don't mean that just as a practitioner, but also if you're Googling or like looking up how to do data science stuff, it's going to be in those languages.
Right.
So doing that in PowerShell was straight up uncharted territory. And I was originally me and then Danny, when I roped him in, we were figuring it out as we went, and it was pretty cool to be on that journey. So that's really what our talk was about, doing that. But more specifically, the code we were covering in our talk was about doing text analysis using OpenAI and kind of getting a summarization or categorization of text data automatically. So that's a specific use case, but if you kind of zoom out from that, it's more about doing data science stuff in PowerShell.
So peeling back the curtain a little bit, I had a nice long conversation with Danny earlier, your coworker. And I gotta say, in talking to him, I sort of got the impression that you really understand the importance of empowering others.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Where does that come from? Like, why do you think that it's valuable to not only be the only one who does things, but to encourage someone else to sort of follow in similar footsteps and to be able to do some of the similar things you've done?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's a little bit of just that's who I am. There's an intrinsic piece of that, but maybe more practically or tactically, it's a couple of things. I mean, one, it's fun to have somebody be along with you, right, for the journey, right? Like Danny's here with me, and it makes it more comfortable for me to be here. Like that's not why I'm doing it, but there's that. I also think it helps Danny out quite a bit to be here with me. I mean, I've been giving him props because, in all seriousness, not only is he presenting here this year, but it's also his first conference ever.
Yes.
He's never attended a conference before this one, so he's here and he's presenting. Like that is bad.
That's huge.
That is awesome. Like,
say it.
Badass. Okay,
yes.
Yeah. I didn't know this is acceptable for.
Say whatever you want. We'll beep it if it's bad enough.
All right, but no, yeah. That's awesome. I think it's pretty cool that he got to do that. I got to present early on in my career, and I thought that would really help me out. Just by I was just going off on my own and applying to speak at some security conferences, and I got to speak early on, and I thought that was, even though I was on an island doing that by myself, it was transformative, but I really thought it'd be helpful to have somebody with me. So, I'm just kind of putting myself in somebody like Danny's shoes, and I think it's helpful to have. I'm bad at PowerShell. I mean, I'll fully admit, like I'm very humble with my PowerShell skill set, and I've never written a module, for example. There's a lot of things I don't know about PowerShell and I'm not good at. But I'm okay at speaking, and I've been with a lot of clients, and
You're better than okay at speaking. I'll say, man.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got some great communication skills.
Thank you.
That's something I try and highlight on the podcast often. It's the importance of communication skills, because PowerShell is one part of things. It is important for automation, but ultimately to implement change in an organization, you're going to need communication skills. So I love to see that on full display. And speaking at conferences and interacting with the community is a great way to sharpen those skills.
Agreed.
I'm looking forward to talking to Danny, though, and getting sort of his side of things.
Well, what I want you to ask Danny about when you talk to him is he runs at West Monroe, we have an internal PowerShell interest group.
What type of organization is that? Just for people.
West Monroe is a technology and business consulting firm. Okay. So we do a lot of technical work for clients, not just advisory. A lot of times people think of consultants as strategy and advisory. We do some of that, but we also do execution work. So architecture and build, and migration too. And I can talk more about that, but so that's just the general context.
Right.
Danny leads our internal interest group on PowerShell. So we meet internally, and we once a month, and we have sessions that we present internally, just like you would an external community. There's pros and cons to having external versus internal communities like that. But the one cool thing about an internal community is we can talk about stuff we're doing at clients,
right,
that I can't talk about publicly.
Privileged information, yeah.
Right. And we can just share that freely. And so it's also kind of an incubator. I've been talking about that a little bit with like Mike Kenos and others, but it's a little bit of an incubator for conference talks or community, meetup talks and things like that. User group talks. So if anybody's interested in having a speaker, like, let us know. Danny's the right person to reach out to because he runs the group. And you can reach out to me too, but I'm going to refer you to Danny.
Okay.
But he runs the group, and we've got speakers talking about all kinds of stuff.
Well, I run the Gainesville PowerShell user group. We run at least one meeting a month, and I will be reaching out to Danny about maybe being a guest.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. We have a coworker who's not here with us today, but had he given this talk earlier internally, I would have encouraged him to be a speaker at Summit this year. He did a talk internally at West Monroe about how he used PowerShell to scrape Reddit. So that's interesting in and of itself. But scrape Reddit and find new music that was aligned with his genre of music that he enjoyed, and added it to Spotify playlists automatically. Like I don't know anybody else doing cool stuff like that in PowerShell. And it's not all about like how good of a PowerShell coder you are, or are you building the coolest module? It's also about, are you just getting outside of your comfort zone and doing cool stuff, and so there's a little of all that, I think, at West Monroe going on. And I appreciate that. I think it's awesome. A good culture thing.
Sounds like a fun culture. I was just about to say.
Yeah.
And I'll say to anyone out there listening, I love when people learn PowerShell and also run internal user groups, internal meetups where you cover things and have an opportunity to improve the PowerShell level of those around you. And it sounds like you are very well connected and familiar with the concept of empowering those around you, which is really cool to see, because I really enjoy seeing people who get to a certain level in their career where they've experienced some success and they realize that really the best way to capitalize on what you've learned and what you've done is to force multiply by empowering others to do similar things, because you've discovered that it is possible. It is possible to do pretty impactful things. You can massively decrease the barrier to entry by having your perspective already gone through it. You can empower them. And honestly, I'm really excited to get to interview Danny sort of early into his journey in that, because I know he's destined for great things.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of things I think about when it comes to force multipliers. At West Monroe, my actual job is I lead effectively our M365 team, our modern work team. And that's a diverse group of people. It's about 45 people. Everywhere from project managers to people who do SharePoint development. That's not me. I'm not a SharePoint developer, and those people can run circles around me in a lot of ways. We do M365 security work, and I mentioned, I think, or if I didn't mention it, we do a lot of divestitures and integrations, and that is to say, I can't do all that. I can't know all that stuff. And so at the end of the day, I need experts that know those things. And Danny's one of those people, for sure. But there's others too. And making sure that they understand that they are leaders on my team and they have a say, and they command respect not only through their knowledge, but also they're leading a team, a sub-team in a way, right? And kind of helping it's complicated, but we have lists of people that are eligible to be staffed on certain roles, and those people that are leading those sub teams are responsible for dictating the list of who is on that sub team, right, and who could be staffed. And the goal is always to get more people on those lists, because at the end of the day, I'm in consulting, we're selling work, we're trying to staff projects, and nothing creates more anxiety or stress than we sell a project and it's a problem to get it staffed correctly, right? So when nobody wants that, we want to make sure we've got enough resources on staff to staff the project. And so anyway, I guess we want to make sure people are empowered to learn, empowered to teach others. And I guess the other thing too is this is where automation comes in. I'm not trying to discourage learning, of course, by saying this, but the other side of it is if we can make things simpler through standardizing, through automation, that also helps us at West Monroe scale. So that's an important part of what we do. And also, I guess it just makes it easier for us to deliver the work we need to do for clients.
So you sound like a fantastic leader. Are you in a leadership role?
I'm a senior architect at West Monroe, which is, fairly senior, but I'm not an executive level, if that's what you mean.
Well, do you have people reporting to you?
Yes. Well, West Monroe is a very matrix organization, so it's a little hard to explain. But directly, I've got a few people that report to me directly, and I'm their career advisor, right? Where I'm responsible for their annual review and all that directly. But the modern work team or M365 team that I lead, a lot of these folks do not report to me directly, and that's okay. That's okay. We're set up that way. I'm essentially the way my position in leading that group is basically I'm a kind of a skill incubator lead, if that makes sense. It's an interesting organizational concept. Let me put it that way.
Interesting. And love chatting with you. I definitely want to tap in more with you in the future about where your perspective comes from and sort of maybe share that perspective with others, because I think the way you conceptualize and approach leadership in your role in empowering others is the right way. And it's a similar way to how I kind of see things. And I love understanding how people came to that conclusion. because it's very easy to conduct yourself in a certain way when that's the way you view the world or you view your work environment. But for now, I have a question for you.
Sure.
What is one tip? It could be related to something you've learned this week. It could be related to something you're passionate about. What is one tip you'd give someone out there that's listening right now?
Just broadly?
Yeah. Anything you want, man. Whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're thinking about, whatever comes to mind.
So I guess it's kind of twofold. One on one hand, I simply say be curious and explore things, right? That's sort of a rose-colored way to say it. But I think it also comes down to, hey, make sure you're using all the resources available to you. You're taking the time to read the docs. You're getting into ChatGPT and asking questions. ChatGPT does hallucinate, and I know people joke about that. I say it sniffs glue, right? But it does hallucinate. It's not always right, but it often is right. And my favorite ChatGPT prompt is to say, "Are you sure?" ? And I hit enter, and if it's accurate, it's going to say, "Yeah, I'm sure," and it's going to explain why it's sure. If it's not sure, it's going to tell you, "Oh, actually, sorry, you're right. I was not correct, and I just made that up." But I guess my point is, use the available resources to you / be curious enough to do that, and I think that helps an individual come better prepared, or come to the table better prepared to have a more intelligent conversation with somebody and not waste somebody's time. And I don't mean me. Like, I don't mean that I want a junior person on my team to come to me prepared. I also mean, like, when you're talking to a client, when you're talking to somebody at a conference like this, you want to have done some rudimentary research and understanding before you come to the table that way. So that's my one tip, I guess.
Last topic I want to talk about is that lovely hoodie you have on.
Is it what?
Your lovely hoodie.
Oh, my hoodie. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Where'd you get it from? Who designed it? Because we may have interviewed them earlier. So
yeah. So Ben does these hoodies. He comes up with a new one every year. Ben Reeder, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. He comes up with these hoodies every year. I had the pleasure of meeting him unexpectedly. I walked up to him at at one of the vendor booths here, and I didn't recognize him from visually until I started talking with him, and we sort of realized that he made these hoodies. So that was awesome to just kind of make that connection in person. But yeah, so I ordered one from him in, I think it was 2020, like the pandemic year. I was going to be here in person, and my ticket got parlayed into a kind of the virtual event that happened later. So yeah, that's where I got the hoodie. It's awesome. Ben saw me wearing it earlier, and he came behind me. He's like, "Hey, don't mind me. I'm gonna just take a photo." And he threw my hoodie up and snapped a photo of my back, which has got the PowerShell logo, which is just awesome.
Love to hear that. It's been fantastic meeting you in person. I know we're recording now, but I've got the chance to meet you earlier in the week. It's been an honor. Excited to see the rest of the week and see you in a few weeks at MMS MOA.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for joining me, man. Thanks for sharing your perspective, and we'll have to tap in a future episode for sure.
Awesome.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Welcome to another interview bar session with none other than my co-presenter. We are hot off the heels of a fantastic presentation. Kevin, reminder, keep the mic by your face, but we are celebrating tonight, my friend. Welcome to the podcast. We talked about peer programming today. How'd that go?
We did. It's been a long time. Long time no speak,
Yeah.
Had a wonderful time. It was fantastic.
So good.
We crushed it.
We did. We were a little nervous, as one should be when doing something live, but not too much. I think we did a good job at finding that place where it's like, yeah, we know it's going to be a little hard, a little stressful, but also we've prepared. Fortunately, we took the approach of setting a bunch of lunchtime meetings with each other, sort of working around the clock.
We did
to put on a good presentation. One of the premier PowerShell events in the world. I don't want to discredit PSConf EU. I know the world is wide, but in terms of North America, man, we're at the pinnacle of the PowerShell world, and we just presented. And that was your first time at Summit presenting. I mean, goodness gracious!
The PowerShell and DevOps Summit,
global
summit.
Global. I mean, this is a world we're dealing with. I just live in Florida. I think I'm a small town guy. Turns out we are having worldly impact. Technically, people in our session were from around the world. I saw someone from Germany. And in fact, it was Christian Ritter, who we will hear from later on the bar sessions. But man, what a fun time, man. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me. I'm glad we did a good job. And anyone else out there, they can prepare and do great things as well.
I'm just happy to get the knowledge out there. I learned a lot preparing for the session.
Me too.
Turns out that I was pair programming all along.
Yeah.
And never really put a name to it, the different flavors of it.
Yeah.
And it has certainly been eye-opening.
Are you sharing screens and talking about code or decisions that you're making with other people? Well, guess what? You're probably pair programming already. Are you having outages and you're looking at code with your team and seeing what to do?
Swarm
you're
calls.
Pair programming, exactly. And it's great to be doing that already, but it's even better to be thinking about it consciously and have some sort of things to keep in mind, some challenges, and basically all the stuff we talked about. And you know what? If people missed it, there's a lot of people out there that listen to this podcast that aren't here today. You know what? Where they can check that out?
On YouTube.
Oh my gosh. It's going to be on YouTube for the world?
It is going to be on YouTube for the world.
Are you kidding me?
It's on the internet.
How
Will
open
be
and giving.
on the internet.
Oh man, just like the PowerShell podcast.
It
Dude,
is.
I love that. I love that. But no, all jokes aside, man, it's been a fun week. I'm very proud of us. I have one more session to give Thursday morning, which I'm really excited about. Talking to Onramp about welcome to the PowerShell community. But tonight, we celebrate.
And we talked a little bit about community involvement during our
yes.
session as well. As it's a wonderful place. It was your idea that, bringing up, you want to practice pair programming, reach out to somebody in the community, someone you don't work with, someone you don't know really well. Get to know them by pair programming. It is such a really interesting concept.
For sure. And I've mentioned this before, but I was personally really positively impacted from pair programming with others. I spend a lot of good time with Fred Weinman of Microsoft fame these days, PS Framework, a bunch of other fantastic projects, and really had a positive impact on me. And it's cool for me to connect those dots and realize, like, wow, that's actually, whenever I connected with Fred and he showed me some stuff and I showed him sort of how I was approaching things and he gave me feedback. Oh, wait. We were pair programming, and that particular instance of working with Fred, him being willing and open to offering someone like me who doesn't have much technical knowledge to contribute at the time. Well, guess what? He empowered me to contribute to his module. It gave me something to talk about at a PowerShell Summit lightning demo in front of Jeffrey Snover, and ultimately helped pave the path for future contributions for me. And guess what? That role that Fred played for me, you can play for someone else. And you can have an impact in their story and empower them to do more. And listen to me, man. This is the PowerShell Summit. We're here for community, and we're living it. We're breathing it. And we're trying to pay it forward and create a better next generation.
Yeah, it's getting people over that feeling that they have nothing to contribute, right? Everyone has something to contribute.
Everyone.
They just might not realize it.
Which is fair. I think to begin with, we often doubt ourselves. Everyone does. Imposter syndrome is something we talk about. If you've never heard about it, definitely look it up. We won't cover it too in depth here. But it's something that everyone struggles with.
Yeah, it's a really interesting beast. And, I am a huge proponent of mental health, checking in. I've been seeing a counselor for 3 years now. My wife's a licensed counselor. And it is so interesting to actually identify that little voice in your head that's saying, you're not worthy to be in the room, to be at the table, to have an opinion. And let me tell you, you are. You really are.
Completely. And I think it comes from an okay place. You don't, that kind of concern. It comes from a place of not wanting to make yourself look foolish and things like that. But you got to go against that with the reality that you have a perspective that is valuable, that you've harnessed over time. You've made mistakes. You've learned lessons. You've spent time and effort to get to where you are. Doesn't mean you're the best thing since sliced bread, but it does mean that you have a lived experience and have things and bring a perspective that is valuable to others, because everyone has a different perspective. Maybe some people will really connect with the fact that I'm passionate and bold and blah, 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 all this excitement stuff. But maybe some people will not connect with that and resonate with that. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That is the truth. You're not going to be perfect for everyone. But there are people out there that can benefit from your perspective, from the lessons that you've learned. And in sharing that with others, you also reinforce the experiences that you've already had, the lessons that you've already learned. It's just good all around.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's really interesting story. So I'm approaching my 17th year in professional development.
Wow.
And I never realized I was doing this, but I was teaching one of my courses on Azure at work. And I made a mistake. It was something dumb. And I said, man, I'm so stupid. And I don't hear myself saying that, but someone who had just joined the group said, do you realize that's the third time you've said that in this session? You're not. And you've got a lot of really good information to give. So try and work on that. And I really took that to heart. I started discussing that with those around me, my wife, my coworkers, my counselor, and I'm trying to affect that and cut that out of my life so that internally I could start believing that I really do. I'm good at what I do. I enjoy it. I'm very passionate about it, if you can't tell.
For sure.
And I love teaching people. And they see that I'm worth more than I see it. And that's disconcerting. I want to fix that. I want to feel comfortable teaching. I want to feel comfortable learning too. We spoke about how people oftentimes feel like they don't want to look foolish. And I'm here to tell you in 17 years, I have looked foolish a lot, but it is part of growing. Did you learn something in the process? Then it was worth every second of feeling foolish.
Completely agree. Put yourself out there, model good behavior for others, be kind to people. And Kevin, did you know that you and whoever is processing this information, you're a person too. It's important to be kind to yourself and extend the same grace that you do to others to yourself. Because believe it or not, the way that you treat yourself, it sort of does trickle out and set somewhat of a tone. You mentioned an example of criticizing yourself. When you verbalize that out loud, one, it sort of does do a disservice to yourself, but also it sets a tone for others. And, you know, we're all leaders in our own way, even if we're not a manager per se. And, whenever we take care of ourselves and treat ourselves well, it sort of sets a standard for others to potentially emulate. Not everyone's going to be doing it, one-to-one, but I think it's certainly helpful from many perspectives to treat yourself well, learn from mistakes, take care of yourself, create the safety that you need to grow. Because really this stuff that we are doing in IT and tech and PowerShell, learning new things, it can be very daunting. And if you don't give yourself the space and the safety to learn and to maybe make a mistake, maybe look a little foolish to some, but the truth is that those whose perspective really matters and who are mature and who've been around for a while, and who, in my opinion, you should be looking up to, they won't judge that in that light. No. They understand that confusion, mistakes, putting yourself out there is part of the growth process. And in fact, if I see someone who is more of a beginner, who's talking about what they're doing, talking about some of the mistakes that they have accidentally made and what they've learned from it, I am very respectful of that. And I look for that in people that I want to work with on my team and grow with and invest my time as someone, you know, we mentioned pair programming. If I want to pair program with someone, I'd like to see someone with those values.
Agreed. One of the best ways to learn something too, I've always held, is to break it. Break it thoroughly and rebuild it. And you're not going to break things if you're not giving yourself the opportunity to mess up. No one knows everything on day one, and the learning is the exciting part.
It is. We all love PowerShell. If you're listening to this right now, 10 minutes into this interview in particular, you probably love PowerShell. But there is so much to be said for community, for improving relationships with others. When it comes to getting things done at work, it is more than just the code that you write. And working on those interpersonal skills is so valuable. I love harping on it on the podcast because a lot of times these skills, these life skills, the way you treat yourself, the communication with others, the active listening, the empathy, it takes time to develop. But being aware of it, sort of learning from your mistakes and growing over time will lead you to a great place. And I'm personally really fortunate that I've invested in the past and realized some of these things and have been, you know, sort of working for it ever since. We're all a work in progress. But start that journey.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. Create the safety for yourself to try new things, to learn. And if you're a leader, create that safety within your team and within your culture to foster growth and to, you get somebody new on your team that's maybe not experienced. By having a good culture, you really reduce the burden to actually getting to work and learning things and growing. And it's just so much more rewarding on a personal level to see someone's life improved. I mean, really, to see someone have that light bulb go off in their brain that we see so often with PowerShell.
I actually just got goosebumps thinking about, like, over the years teaching someone and then having them have that moment.
Yes.
Is such a good day. I mean, you said be kind to yourself, but also celebrate those moments.
For sure.
That is another huge one.
It's about the journey, right? There's going to be ups and downs on the journey forever. There's going to be goals that you set, and if you're going the right way, you'll reach them. You'll need to set new ones. Appreciate the journey. Appreciate the learning process. If you're a beginner, appreciate some of the things that you're learning, because those are actually going to be impactful memories you will want to reflect on in the future. The future is coming, okay?
Yeah.
You'll get there.
Wait.
Enjoy the journey, though.
We're in the future.
The journey never ends. We've both learned PowerShell to a pretty solid perspective, but it's not over. We're still having things we're struggling with. We're pushing ourselves. We're giving talks at freaking PowerShell Summit, man.
That's it. I mean,
it never ends.
I never stop learning PowerShell. There are things that, I mean, of course, there's emergent pieces of PowerShell. Of course, it's a very, very exciting time to be in PowerShell.
It is.
But also things that have been around for a decade. I never knew that existed. That's a really cool thing.
I just ran into somebody the other day that had not heard of calculated properties with select objects. So if you haven't heard about that, what is it?
Calculated property or
underscore calculated properties. I think I'm thinking singular. Help about underscore calculated properties. I don't know. Figure it out with an asterisk at the end there. But there's just so many things to everything in life, really. As you keep going through, you'll learn new things. Embrace the journey. You're not alone on it. We're all here in this journey together, reaching our next step. That's sort of my thing I keep harping on, is like, reach your next step. Find out whatever is the next easiest but challenging goal for you and go for it. And keep doing that and get good at that. And all of a sudden, years later, you might find yourself in a spot you never thought was possible, but somehow seems logical when you go through it step by step.
Yeah, it's all about the journey.
Amazing stuff here at PowerShell Summit 2024, the PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit. Kevin, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We'll have to talk more in the future. What's one thing you want to tell the audience? You get one choice, anything you want.
One thing.
Plug your favorite cryptocurrency. Just kidding. Plug your favorite cryptocurrency.
Cryptocurrency.
No, I'm kidding.
I actually no longer own cryptocurrency.
Fair enough.
I sold it all very recently for a brand new 3D printer.
There you go. What's the one piece of advice you'd give people out there, though?
Keep trying.
Keep trying.
You're gonna mess up. We've talked at length about that. You're going to mess up, but keep trying.
Yep. And think about that bigger picture, because as time goes on, as you keep putting these small pieces together, you can do amazing things. You really can. It does not take some sort of magic potion or anything like that. You can do amazing things. Thank you, Kevin, for joining me. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening.
Andrew.
We appreciate you. Keep growing, keep learning. We're here with you. We're doing it too. So let's all get together and grow together and achieve some amazing things. Thank you to the PowerShell community. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another bar session. I am joined with Steven Bucher. I'm coming off the heels of just finishing presenting my talk. So if I seem excited, there's a reason. I am enjoying being done, but excited for my talk on Thursday. But Steven, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you had some presentations today. I think you all, the PowerShell team, did an awesome presentation to the whole conference, and I think you had some personal sessions today.
Yeah, so I mean, this is day 2 of the conference we're recording this at, which it feels like day 1 because we've just started the keynote and the state of the shell presentation that we did. Our whole PowerShell team was there in attendance to do a brief demos about what's new. talk about the future looking stuff as well as kind of where we're at today.
Yes.
Which
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to say, dude, I was so excited. So I've been preaching about, 1 billion sessions a month, 1 billion sessions a month. And you guys whip out and you say 2 billion sessions a month. And those are recorded sessions only.
Yes, so that is 2 billion sessions a month. That is still growing, and we're starting to get a little bit more insight into kind of what that is. And we may be making some changes in the future where you may see the number drop. However, that does not mean there isn't that kind of usage. We are just trying to hone in more on different areas with the telemetry, kind of capturing this data. We're getting to a point where it's starting to cost us some money to host all this data, and so we got to kind of throttle back. But yeah, we're getting over 2 billion sessions a month for PowerShell 7 alone, and so it's pretty remarkable that we're still kind of exponentially growing. I think it was only last year we announced 1 billion, so it's still growing and growing.
One thing that you talked about and teased a little bit, and I didn't get to check out your session, and I always talk about one of my favorite parts about PowerShell, but that is the interactive PowerShell.
Yeah.
So what's been going on in that space? What have you been talking about?
Sure. So, the interactive area of PowerShell is kind of where, as you're interacting with the shell part of PowerShell, it's not really the language. It's not really it is, but it's the shell that you're actually running the single one-off commands or your pipelines that you're creating. That area is an area that I'm responsible for. And so that includes the PS Reline module and also other improvements that we're looking at. So it's talking about all sorts of stuff with predictors and this new thing that we're calling feedback providers. It was a good session. I think it'll be recorded and available to folks to check out as well.
It's pretty sweet. Definitely check out the recordings on that. Maybe we'll dive into that more in a future episode. But just the concept of thinking about interactive PowerShell, it's kind of an interesting space because you have the ability to really reduce the barrier to entry on some things, make the data and workflow better. It's very interesting space to me.
Yeah, so it's interesting. My basic philosophy with it is pretty simple: that the shell should help you. Like that's as simple as it can be, right? I want the shell to be able to assist you with before you hit enter and after you hit enter. And we also keep in mind the beginner users as well as the advanced users when we're designing these new improvements to it, because we know that the CLI in general has a high barrier to entry. And it's very interesting because I've talked with a lot of customers outside of the PowerShell community whom are scared of the CLI. They're scared of the kind of power that it can hold. And so, with the CLI tools that we own, we try to make sure that we create those safeguards, but we know that not every CLI tool can do that. And so we're looking at ways that we can help the users feel more comfortable in the CLI space in general. So that's definitely the kind of motivation I have with new designs and new implementations. So.
Yeah, and I think that it's very interesting. Just in general, I've seen the same challenge with people getting into PowerShell and CLIs and automation, and it definitely is a challenging process. I'm pretty focused on trying to help in whatever ways I can to reduce that barrier to entry. I've been thinking long-term about the history of PowerShell. I remember one of the cool things Jason Helmick announced whenever he joined the PowerShell team, however long ago, was making the errors more visible.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple way.
Concise view and extended view, yeah.
For me, at least, one of the big quality of life features that I'm like, you should probably get to PowerShell 7. There are a lot of improvements, but also the little things that really add up, you're going to want to be on there. Especially now, years have passed since, and there's been a ton of improvements. Very cool space. Now, also sort of related, right, is the whole AI thing, right? So how's AI playing into play here?
Yeah, so that's a great question because we definitely think a lot about how AI can enhance the interactive experience, but it's not as simple as just kind of turning on AI into your shell experience. We can't radically lag your CLI experience with calls off box to any LLMs, and so there's difficulty there for implementation. We want to maintain consistency of behavior and performance. So there's a tricky balance that we're trying to make, but we do enable predictors that include that can include locally run machine learning models like the AZ predictor, which uses a locally built and run on model to help predict AZ commands. So that's possible. It's difficult to make, but I think we're starting in an era where these large LLMs have made such a movement in the AI space that it's also starting to trickle down to the locally built models that are more fine-tuned to a specific area. And so I'm very excited for the future of other predictors that are built on top of local models that can meet the timeout requirements that we have that enhance your shell experience even more.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think it's worth noting that, we hear about AI a lot, but it is really such an exciting time to be in technology where things are, we get to experience this sort of wave of new technology sort of coming out. And how can we think about approaching problems differently? And I know that's sort of where your headspace is a lot of the time. So I don't get to spend too much time thinking about how to apply that to my work, but definitely it's worth appreciating sort of where we are with technology and that we get to live through this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really difficult from a product side of things as it's so fragmented right now and so scattered, and it's gonna be messy before it gets clean, and so it's gonna settle out a lot more, I think, in the next couple of years, and we're gonna start to hone in on particular areas where it's really advancing, and I think there is a certain area that intersects PowerShell and the AI space. And, with things like GitHub Copilot improving better, there is a lot more flows that people are starting to integrate into their daily life. Even if it's just to ask ChatGPT for inspiration on how to start a project, it's not going to be correct, but it gets them the inspiration they need. And it's quite surprising how many people are starting to do this in their day-to-day.
For sure, me. I really struggle with the blank slate, and having some point to jump off of for me is so helpful. So, and similar to how I appreciate PowerShell and the improvements made to it to make my interactive experience better, I'm also actively looking at ways that AI can sort of tweak my workflow, especially as time goes on, tools get more mature, which we're seeing pretty rapidly these days, which is wild, right? A ton of money is being poured into AI. So very, very interesting space, most certain.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's a thing called a roadmap. And I know as a PM, that's kind of a thing you think about. So what's on the future roadmap for the PowerShell world? The PowerShell world. PowerShell.
For the PowerShell world.
Yeah.
As far as, roadmap. I mean, we got a kind of a big roadmap. It's still always kind of ever changing with new things that come up like AI or new incidents, and so it is a little can be subject to change. I'll put it that way, but we are definitely looking at investments into areas of what we kind of call intelligent shell, which is a bit of a blanket statement more. To capture what I've been talking about with the interactive side of things, but also capture more areas of the AI space. And so we're definitely looking at investments in that area. We're definitely looking at investments into new things with private galleries and enablement for more container registry scenarios for package management. SSH is a big area that we're still investing in, and configuration as well with the revival of DSE v3, and some of the work there is pretty cool, but that's something Michael Green can probably talk to better.
Oh, I'd love to hear more about DSC. That's a very interesting space. But I'll also note that Steven has no notes. He's just going off the dome. This guy lives this stuff, right? This is your day to day.
I mean, yeah, I think we, as a team, we've done something very well where we do have a touch base on what everyone's doing and how our whole vision works towards our mission statement around helping people improve their lives in automation. And so that obviously is pretty general statement, but we can piece a lot of the work that we're doing back to that, and making sure that we can help each other in the particular areas, how the related works that we do accelerate each other and that sort of thing.
One thing I liked that you all called out was the successes of the year, right? It can be, as a consumer of PowerShell, we always want more. Oh, we want this, we want that. But I think it's also worth taking a note, us as the community appreciate all the great work that's gone in this year. I mean, that slide with all the things that have been done is huge.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't understand, and we're a pretty small engineering team. I mean, the PM team, we're pretty visible, but we do have the engineering team who are the backbone of the PowerShell team. And they're the ones making the real changes and making the real improvements to PowerShell. But it is a pretty small team, and they have to do a lot of work to get these releases out, to maintain the repository, to review PRs, to review issues, to do all sorts of other compliance work that is completely invisible to the community at large. And so they're really the the real heroes with the PowerShell repo. So we're very happy with the progress that we've made, and very excited for the kind of higher engagement that we want to have with the community for this next year. We've been kind of quote unquote terming 7.5 as a community update too, where we focus more on community PRs and community issues to help movement that really resonates better with the community.
That's awesome. I know that that's been sort of a pain point for some, and it's very exciting to see that happening. And I know that you all are very open to issues and communication and what's going on, but I also want to take a minute. It's great that everyone out there is giving their feedback, but also take a moment sometimes to maybe say thanks, because we are very fortunate. And I imagine it's kind of cool to, you work on this language all the time, and, you're kind of in the PowerShell world day in and day out. It's your job, but now you kind of get a week where you can be amongst the community and sort of see different people and hear about how people are using it. What's that been like?
It's really great. I feel like we always get a big energy boost after these conferences because we see what people are actually using PowerShell with. We see the excitement around it and the impact that it has to people's lives and people's jobs. So that's something that we really thrive on, and we get so many great ideas from conferences. We've had some great focus groups this session and some great feedback that every time we go to a conference, we always have a long list of follow-up items we need to do, and a new excitement to challenges that we've had for a long time, but a new excitement to tackle those challenges, perhaps in a different way. But yeah.
You mentioned a lot of really cool things and initiatives and things that are going on. Say somebody, they've been using PowerShell for a while, but they're not really with what's latest and greatest. What are two things, say somebody has just got updated to PowerShell 7, what are two things, could be future or past, that they should check out? Projects, it could be improvements to commands. Yeah, I know, putting you on the spot, making you choose favorites.
Well,
I can relate to that.
What's that?
I can relate to that, Sai.
Well, there's a lot of the different angles that you want to approach it. So
yeah.
I'd say if you are ever interested in kind of the latest stuff that the PowerShell team is doing and being more involved in the community at large, the community calls are the best place to engage. That's every third Thursday of the month, 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We do have a time slot now in March and September for folks in Asia and Indian time zones, or Asia and Australian time zones, that we're trying out. But that's a great way to see the latest and greatest stuff and hear the new updates, learn some new demos, show off some cool PowerShell stuff. That's definitely a great way to do it. I'm obviously biased where I think PS Readline is one of the coolest, most underutilized modules out there. It's inbox, so you don't even have to install it. It's already there for you. And there's so many cool little things that you can do to better tweak your PowerShell experience, like key handlers, predictors. You can change your colors. You can change your prompt. You can change stuff for your history. You can do all sorts of really cool stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. We spent a lot last year improving the documentation around there. And so shout out to Sean Wheeler, who's helped me a lot with that. But there's a lot more cool examples out there for PS Readline that I think folks should check out.
Sweet. Yeah, that's one that I always love recommending, because it's like if people aren't aware of it and you start utilizing it, it just opens up the world to you, especially as we're, if you're at a certain point, you're a professional. PowerShell is part of your professional skill set, and you should look to refine that over time and improve that. And PS Readline is a huge way to start adding those workflow improvements to your life. And, you can save them and take them with you to the next job and sort of keep refining how you interact with PowerShell.
Absolutely.
But Steven, thank you so much for joining me. We'll
Sure.
have to get you in the future for another long form and dive a little bit deeper into some of these topics, but I appreciate you. I'll see you throughout the week.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining.
No, thank you for having me.
And definitely check out the PowerShell community call, third Thursdays. Highly recommend it. It's not just the PowerShell team talking. It is the community call. So you'll get some updates. You'll be able to ask some questions and be amongst the community. Highly recommend it. Check it out.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast, PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit Edition, PowerShell After Dark. The PowerShell Podcast is a production of PDQ.com.